We're getting ready to hear from the president of the National Bar Association. Can you please take your seats? We're getting ready to hear from the president of the National Bar Association. There'll be more time for pictures and catching up with good friends, but I want to make sure that we give her the respect that she is due. And while we're all taking our seats, I want to make sure that we also honor three of our past presidents of the National Bar Association. We have with us Bob Harris. Bob, can you just stand and wave your hand? Bob Harris. We have Tom Broom. Is Tom here with us as well? Can you please stand? We also have past President Demetrius Shelton. Demetrius, can you stand? Just wave your hand. You know, there are many people who talk about justice. There are many people who talk about freedom. There are many people who talk about civil rights. Of course, our theme is advancing civil rights today, tomorrow, and forever. Well, in our midst, we have a true civil rights leader. We have somebody who has been toiling in the fields of justice, somebody who has been out there making a difference for our community right here in our presence. And again, I want to make sure that we show the respect to our National Bar Association president. President Lonita Baker was the attorney for the family of Breonna Taylor. She was out there fighting for justice at a time when our people were being mowed down without any accountability. She was that voice crying in the wilderness. She was fighting for the family, fighting for reforms, and she got those reforms. She negotiated a $12 million settlement for the unlawful murder of Breonna Taylor, but she didn't stop there. She fought for police reforms so that black lives can really matter, so that black lives are really protected. In her role as president of the National Bar Association, she represents every black lawyer, not only in this room, but every black lawyer and every black judge in the United States of America, every black lawyer, every black judge worldwide. She is out there giving the message of freedom and justice. We should be celebrating her and her work. I really can't think of anyone who has done more in the fight for justice than our National Bar Association president, tirelessly working to make a difference in the laws that govern our lives, working to make a difference, to make sure that every life in this room is protected. That is none other than President Lonita Baker. I'm going to call President Baker to the stand, and I'm going to ask everybody, can you just stand? We want to show reverence and respect for the leader of all black lawyers, all black judges worldwide. We want to show respect. Can everybody stand as the president of the National Bar Association, our advocate for justice, our fighter for freedom, our fighter for civil rights, the wheel in the middle of the wheel? Hey, Lonita Baker.
When we were just in Philadelphia for the National Bar Association's Wiley Branton Symposium, I asked that I not have to follow after Terrance. But no, thank you for that warm introduction, President Evans. Good evening. I am extremely honored and humbled to be in your presence tonight and for this annual gala. I want to thank the Charles Houston Bar Association, led by Mr. President Terrance Evans, the Board of Governors of the Charles Houston Bar Associations, for the invitation to be here and to speak to you all this evening. As the President of the National Bar Association, I bring you greetings on behalf of our Board of Governors and our members. Congratulations to this evening's award honorees, our Hall of Fame award inductees, which include NBA past President Judge Demetria Shelton and NBA past General Counsel Yolanda Jackson Thomas, and to all the scholarship recipients this evening. I want to congratulate President Evans on a successful and groundbreaking year. From record-breaking fundraising to ensuring that the Charles Houston Bar Association is advocating for our communities and its members. You have done the work, Mr. President, and thank you. I would be remiss, I know President Evans did it, but I would be remiss if I did not recognize the NBA leaders that are in the room, including past presidents Bob Harris, Judge Shelton, Tom Broom, current NBA board members, Treasurer Yuri Walker, who you heard from earlier, Region 9 Director and your President, Terrance Evans, and the California Association of Black Lawyers, President Shamika Sukdale. Thank you for your continued service to the National Bar Association. In the words of Charles Hamilton Houston, this organization's namesake, the Negro lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. He continued in explaining, the Negro lawyer must be trained as a social engineer and a group interpreter due to the Negro's social and political condition. The Negro lawyer must be prepared to anticipate, guide, and interpret his group's advancement. A social engineer is a highly skilled, perceptive, sensitive lawyer who understood the Constitution of the United States and knew how to explore its uses in solving the problems of local communities and in bettering the conditions of underprivileged citizens. With Black attorneys representing only 5% of America's attorneys, it is imperative that each and every one of us in this room do our respective parts to transform and improve Black communities nationwide. As we continue to watch the attempts to erode our democracy and an increase in racial balance, we need to make sure that each of us are being social engineers. Take a moment and think about what it is that you can do to better our communities with your legal experience. Mr. Houston didn't say the civil rights lawyer, he didn't say the criminal lawyer, he didn't say the judges. He said the Negro lawyer must be a social engineer. So it's not limited to the area of law that you practice. It is the job of all of us to work together to better the position of underprivileged communities. If you are a corporate attorney, employment, tax, you can have pro bono workshops for Black business owners to ensure that their legal houses are in order. While much debate stems around criminal justice reform, we must remember that societal problems that plague our communities are circular. They include educational, economic, environmental, and healthcare inequity in Black communities. When schools are not provided the proper resources to make sure all children have the means to succeed, we are setting the stage for continued economic inequity. Living in a perpetual state of inequity and poverty leads to hopelessness, which often leads to young kids to turn to lives of crimes to get money, just to have the bare necessities. I'm gonna tell you a story about when I practiced criminal defense law. I represented a young man. He had just turned 17 and a half. He was charged with 6 counts of robbery in the first degree. He was jumping into vehicles when they were at ATMs with a BB gun and demanding the cash. The way that we know that they were BB guns is because on his 6th and final attempt, he was shot. He survived, but that's how he got caught, and we learned it was a BB gun. In talking to him while we were preparing our defense, I asked him, like, what led you to do this, right? Because he was the yes ma'am, no ma'am, Miss Baker, like he was not a hardened criminal. And my years of practice he was not what I was used to representing, especially someone that you would see with 6 counts of robbery. And he said, Miss Baker, I have 8 brothers and sisters. My mother and father are not working. our water had been cut off for 3 months. We were having to go next door taking 30 milk jugs to fill up for water just to take baths and have water to drink. He said, I tried to get a job, no one would hire me. And I just wanted to get the water turned back on so that my younger brothers and sisters did not think that that was normal. And I don't say that to excuse the 6 robberies. Of course, those people whose cars that he jumped in, they were victims. I'm a former prosecutor as well. So I don't say it to excuse it, but I tell that story to show you just where that hopelessness, when we're not changing our communities, when we're not building equity, economic equity in our communities, that sense of hopelessness, what it can do to our young children. He was charged as an adult because of the seriousness of the crime, but luckily in Kentucky, our laws allowed him to be resentenced at 18, and the judge showed mercy on him and he was probated. Proud to report, he stayed out of trouble since he's been probated, and he's turned over a new leaf. So it can happen, but it's just we have to really fight to change the laws, to increase equity, to improve our communities. It's our job as lawyers. We have to be social engineers so that we can properly advocate for our communities on the issues of criminal justice, economic equity, educational. When we know there are communities like Flint, Michigan, where the water contamination leads to ongoing health needs, we can't sit silent as lawyers. We must continue to stand the line when it comes to protecting voting rights. In far too many communities across America, we see legislators trying to strip our communities, strip people of their right to vote, which is supposed to be the fundamental right in our democracy. As we see political leaders stand by and act like January 6, 2021 was not egged on by misinformation, that's being nice, by lies that an election was stolen, we can't sit idly by. Each election cycle, we see people jockeying for the black vote, wanting to make sure that we get out and vote. But as lawyers, we need to be the people that stand in between election cycles and making sure that we're pushing our legislators to do right by our communities. You want our vote, you do the work and stand by our communities. I put that burden on lawyers and not activists because we are trained to read legislation. And we have a better eye on when legislation is passed to placate us and when true legislation is passed that's going to have some real reform. We need to work alongside the people doing the work in the streets. We need to work alongside the people doing the work in the streets, protesting and engaging others. We need to speak up when we see bills written that don't have any teeth. We need to guide them to ask for more. Them being those protesters, those people who are out in the street. I'm not telling you to get out there and protest. We got to represent the people that are protesting and get locked up for protesting, right? But we got to guide them to ask for more. We need to be willing to speak during legislative hearings, and we need to make sure that when we are donating, and yes, we should be donating to candidates, that we're sending our money to the ones who are really willing to work to better our communities. In the words of a fellow black woman attorney, Stacey Abrams, we must cease being participants in our own oppression. And the way that we end that cycle is to begin to speak up, and by being active. Our organizations like the National Bar Association need black lawyers working together in unity. It is the only way that we win this battle. It is not enough to talk around the water cooler. It is not enough for us to say amongst each other that something is not right. It is not enough just for us to be upset about what is happening. We must act. Each and every one of us. If we do nothing, we are complicit. I know it can seem like a never-ending battle, especially when we see tragedies like the shooting in Buffalo, Uvalde, and Tulsa, or people continuing to be unlawfully murdered by police officers and who are not held accountable. But in the words of Curtis Mayfield, we got to keep on keeping on. And I also recognize that in order to be a part of this fight for the long haul, we have to remember to take care of ourselves first, because we can't fill anything from an empty cup. In closing, I'm going to leave us with the words of my favorite black woman attorney, Michelle Obama. You may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all of the world's problems at once. But don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because history has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own. Let's all work together to be social engineers and change our communities.
Thank you so much, President Baker. And in celebration for all that you have done, not only for our organization, but for the Black community worldwide, we want to present you with the highest honor that we present to any woman in the legal profession that has done the most for the Black community, the Kamala Harris Woman of Excellence Award. Please accept our highest award in your... So we're now getting